Hello to all the Hillians out there, and I'm Joe, and here's a new Zelda video for you all. How I do a Legend of Zelda Linkle's story, the Heroine of Time. To start out, the nature of the Fallen Timeline is that it is the traditional mythic fantasy one. It tells the original tales of the Legend of Zelda. Originally, it was filled out quite a bit until at last newer, shinier baubles caught Miyamoto and the rest of his staff's eyes. And the old games, such as Link to the Past, lost their luster, so to speak. Who could blame them? They had two other great timelines to give us and an ancient past to fill out in terms of lore. Still, though, I've always held some measure of regret over the fact that the Fallen Timeline was somewhat abandoned. What is more is that I've also always felt Linkle to be a character who presents a great storytelling possibility. Sure, I know a great many people are afraid of a female Link story. And sure, I get it, but still, it is possible to tell such a story without going woke. It is possible to tell a story of this adorable, brave, and fearless young girl, all while paying homage to the classic Zelda stories of old. The difference is that, in my view, not only should Linkle be treated as an oddity, but her rebirth as a girl should be countered by the rebirth of Zelda as a boy. Ganon should remain the same, as he is, after all, an ancient evil who doesn't always change, but always tends to possess others. There should also be references to old lore, to old ideas, and also see some renovations done on some points. I know this sounds scary, but just let me try my hand here. Okay, first things first, the young prince will obviously not be called Zelda, but he should still possess the spirit of Hylia. We'll just call him for the moment Prince Helios, if only for sanity's sake, and so that we don't use a girl's name. And honestly, his story should be different from that of Zelda's by nature. Zelda usually comes into the story already possessing a great deal of wisdom, but let's have this youth earn his wisdom. As to Linkle, we'll have our story start out along slightly different lines, as Hyrule Warriors has her reference her grandmother as having always told her that she is the chosen hero, so to speak, and as passing down to her the garments of the hero of time and a gold pocket watch. These should be kept, and as those all serve to differentiate this incarnation of the hero of Hyrule and helps to flesh out Linkle as a character. She's a character or a person with a great deal of love in her heart and who should be shown to idolize her grandmother. We'll have it said that she still has her mother and father because it's boring always having orphans. At the start of the story, there should be emphasis put on the fact that Hyrule is in the midst of a civil war, one that is between an over-grasping uncle, whom we'll call the Duke of Hylia. Imagine the Duke of Albany from Scottish history. He's already driven his older brother to an early grave and now seeks to kill his nephew. Opposed to him is the Princess Zelda. Now, she's known by this name because all the women of the royal family are called Zelda, but this one seeks the throne for herself and lacks the wisdom of her ancestresses. She seeks to grasp the throne and opposes not only her uncle, but her brother, even as she seeks to dominate the Regency Council she was named leader of. The feudal lords have jockeyed for a position, and the first battles between the Duke and the Princess's loyal friend, the King of the Zora, whom should bear the appearances they have in Link to the Past. I'm thinking the battle will have taken place in the Hylian Plains and would be a monumentally big fight. One that fixes in everyone's minds the horrors of war, but also solidifies the resolve of the people of Hyrule to slug it out. At the same time, Linkle's grandmother falls sick, as her father, common guard for the royal family, who was originally a guard to the castle, participated in the battle and disappeared. His mother thus, as said, worried herself sick and may not recover, so that Linkle, who adores her and fears for her father, leaves the apple farm in her mother's care and hurries off to the nearby castle that she might plead for aid for both. When she goes to ask for a physician and search party, she is turned away and decides to try her hand at the royal court, is rejected, but then insulted, she decides to slip in anyways. Slipping by unnoticed, it is nightfall by the time she arrives within the castle, only to stumble upon assassins, who should be Shaikas, as they've been divided by the Civil War also, sent to kill the underaged King Helios. Deciding to kill her lest she should alert the rest of the castle, she defeats them using a dagger her father gave her, and plunges on ahead to rescue the king. She finds him not in his bedchambers, and so dashes back down only to stumble upon him and his Sheikah bodyguard, Impa. In the midst of preparing to escape, Impa hands over the young boy's protection to Linkle and tells him to get away while she buys time. This Linkle and Helios would do, though the king is reluctant. Helios, once they're en route, insists that they take refuge in the Temple of Time. Hardly able to manage the young boy, Linkle ends up forced to accompany him as he dashes off on his own. Thinking they might find refuge there, he behaves derisively towards Linkle, who is 4 years his senior. He is 12 or 13. It turns out that the assassins aren't concerned about sullying consecrated land. And so Linkle, who is without any choice, plunges forward to grab the sword from the pedestal and uses it to kill the assassins. Amazed, the king is awestruck and cannot bring himself to believe what he has seen. Refusing to let her go without him around, as he considers the Master Sword a royal artifact, he accompanies her on the ensuing journey. Trained as a wizrobe mage, he will act as a kind of sidekick to Linkle, who will fight her way through a desolated landscape divided by bloody civil war. In search initially for the sacred fire of Death Mountain, sacred waters from Lake Hylia, and a sacred decunut in the forest for a cure for Linkle's grandmother. Along the way, on this particular part of the quest, Linkle and Helios find out that the Duke sent someone to capture the princess of the Zora and to corrupt Lord Jabu Jabu against the Zora. Because of this, the two had to enter Jabu Jabu and kill the infection within him, thus purifying him, even as they then moved to Lake Hylia itself to rescue the captured princess, whereupon they entered a water shrine, rescued her, and restored her to her father, who gave over, as said, the sacred water. As to Death Mountain, as the Gorons have elected to support the Duke, the one who sent out someone to mess things up there and kill their king was the Princess Zelda. The result was Linkle and Helios working together to stop this impulsive plan, and to also plunge into Death Mountain and the temple there to slay the corrupted Phoenix Guardian of the mountain, who takes on the shape upon its death of a large egg, and so it'll be reborn later. Thus, we see that both sides are mucking around, but there's something strange as both locations had a cloaked figure by the name of Dagonem, carrying out the orders of both sides. It also happens that Linkle tries to, once she has the medicine necessary to save her grandmother, drop off Helios at the Gerudos. But once there, she finds out that they support the Princess Zelda. Along the way, they thwart an attempt to assassinate Linkle, help thwart invasion by the Duke, and also stops his attempt to corrupt a local guardian there also. In the end, the heiress of the Gerudos, whom they also saved, gets a crush on Helios, who isn't too keen on her and has mixed feelings about the Gerudos, even as he stops insulting Linkle at this time and stops sulking about things. It is as they go to return to Hyrule proper, as the Gerudos feel nervous about keeping the king with them, and propose to reconcile him with his sister. Thinking this the end of the journey, in spite of how it was Zelda who screwed up with the Gorons in the Lost Woods, Linkle accompanies the royal escort. Once in Zelda's castle, yes, she should have her own, they discover that yes, she did those things, but then she has agreed to the meeting to try to entrap her brother and slay him out of jealousy. She wishes to be queen, as she views her name and her status as a royal princess as reason enough for her to be ruler in place of her spoiled brother, who is little more than a haughty bookworm to her mind. Hurt by this, Helios hardly responds, and it is Linkle who slaps and scolds this Zelda, breaking royal protocol, even as other Sheikahs arrive to try to slay them, all on behalf of the Duke. They are fought off, but in the chaos, Helios turns up missing, and Linkle, who has rescued Zelda, decides to hide her since she's no longer safe with Impa, who arrived mid-fight to help out. Impa agrees to take Zelda to Linkle's family's apple farm, while Linkle will hurry off to rescue Helios. So, just to make that clearer, because I have a bit of a typo in the script, Linkle has rescued Zelda, decides she's not safe in the castle, and decides to hand her over to Impa. And Zelda goes along with this. Severely humbled and distraught at the death of her household servants, and several of her bodyguards, Zelda agrees to go somewhat meekly. She then is faced with the devastated landscape that her misdeeds has created, even as Zelda plunges away rescuing Helios, just as he is taken to a temple by Daganem. Daganem is revealed to be a servant of Ganon and is slain on the altar of the desecrated temple by Linkle. Daganem, though, has not succeeded in reintroducing Ganon to the world, but calls out to his twin brother to help him do this. Linkle and Helios leave the temple but are confronted by the Duke's men, who are hastily defeated, with Linkle deciding to take the king to her farm also, where she discovers Zelda's been captured by the Duke and the farm was devastated, with Linkle's family having been hidden in the nearby woods, with the Skull Kid whom Linkle befriended during her time in the Lost Woods. Impa is mortally wounded and dies, to the grief of our heroes. Linkle and Helios bury her with full respect, then at the insistence of the king rush off to Castle Hylia to find and rescue Zelda, who has been mistaken for the Princess of Legends. Busting in, they will do so with the aid of the Gerudos, Gorons, Zoras, and local farmers and such who have had it with the Civil War. Storming the castle interior, they find the Duke absent from the main hall, only to find him in the chapel where he and Daganem's twins seek to sacrifice her to Ganon, as only the blood of a royal family member of the House of Hyrule can revive him into the world of Hyrule. Zelda is chained to the altar and is amazed to see her brother and his protector eager to rescue her. For his part, the Duke is unable to complete the ritual, but accepting a dark sword from the servant of Ganon, he becomes, it seems, possessed by an even greater darkness, and does battle with the heroes. The ensuing battle is heated, with Daganem's evil twin slain in the fighting by Helios, in spite of his pleas for mercy as Zelda's former advisor, while the Duke is mortally wounded by the Master Sword. Evil though he is, as his blood falls onto the altar, it works to revive Ganon, even as the Duke dies laughing and sneering at the heroes as his master re-enters the world of Hyrule. It happens that Ganon re-enters the world and is stunned to find that the hero of time at this point is now the heroine of time. Amused in thinking her, in the spirit of Zelda, weaker, he unveils his Triforce of Power, which serves to awaken the Triforces of Valor and Wisdom in Linkle and Helios respectively, with Ganon addressing them as Link and Zelda instead of their other names. In the three-part battle, Linkle and Helios team up to slay the Demon King, with Helios often blinding him with light and Linkle shooting him with arrows blessed by Helios, light arrows. Then the two seek to use a blessed chain of the Gerudos to restrain him during short intervals so that Linkle can slash at him with a Master Sword. It is, however, just as the battle turns foul that Linkle's father appears among the common soldiers, revealing himself to have been injured for a time and to have, when he heard of how his daughter had become a hero, plunged forward to join the army that was gathered to storm Castle Hylia. Throwing himself in the way of an attack intended for her, Helios and Zelda, he perishes, buying enough time for Linkle to hack off one of Ganon's hands. So, as said, there was an attack intended for Linkle, Helios, and Zelda. Linkle's dad rushed in the way and took the blast. Blinded by pain, Ganon rears back just before Linkle plunges the Master Sword through his heart, killing him. In the aftermath, the Triforces of Power, Valor, and Wisdom are released and gathered together with Helios, gathering them, together. His sister has the chance to seize them, but refuses, recognizing her brother as her king, her heart having been moved and changed by his continuous rescues of her. Helios, full of compassion for Linkle and remembering Impa, calls upon the Triforce to revive all those lost in the past weeks. The adventure has been a year long, and those dead for longer than 3 months cannot be revived in this version of events. The only one not revived is the Duke, who pledged his soul to evil. Linkle and her dad are reunited, and they all escort the Master Sword back to its pedestal, and then the heroine of Hyrule back to her family, Apple Farm, where they discover Granny to have been healed, with the old woman embracing her son and granddaughter with sincere love and joy. Impa, for her part, ends up thanking Linkle quite heartily for having brought the siblings back together. It is as Zelda, who claimed the Regency, returns power to her brother, who grants her their uncle's former domains, that Linkle goes to take her leave with her father, who has, by this time, been knighted for his heroics. Linkle is stopped as the Regency ending ceremony ends with the king seeking to stutter out an invitation for her to come live in the castle. Not being particularly intelligent about this sort of thing, Linkle inadvertently shoots him down, which causes Impa to tease him until he, in true Edward Elric fashion, demands that Linkle marry him when the time comes for him to come of age. Linkle is amused and amazed, and not taking the whole thing seriously, she still thinks him a little kid, agrees if in somewhat joking manner. In the first epilogue, it mentions that Helios would spend 4 years touring the south of his kingdom and being fostered with his sister, the new Duchess of Hylia. It would be upon his return that he would indeed take up Linkle as a bride, with her grandmother living long enough to see the ceremony, and her precious granddaughter crowned Queen of Hyrule. The second epilogue would show Cia observing things and looking on in ever-growing frustration and envy as she is steadily corrupted. Next time we'll be tackling the child timeline again, this time with Link rather than a Linkle incarnation of the spirit of hero, and a proper Zelda, as this story was just a semi-step off the beaten path, an attempt to do things slightly, differently. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button to check out my Substack, where I tend to write these sort of things all the time. And also check out our book, Crown of Blood, which has been getting some pretty rave reviews lately. So until next time, take care.